Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Wild Roundup. My name is Brady, also known as mnwildplayers on Instagram, and I'm joined by my co-host.
My name is Chase, also known as underscore Chase Connor on Instagram.
And basically, this podcast, we're just going to be talking about the Wild news from each week. We're going to be going over some game results, and we're also going to discuss basically everything that's going on with the Wild. And we're at the end, we're also going to talk about questions that my viewers have on Instagram as well as on YouTube. So I guess we'll just get straight into it. So first piece of news: Dumba and Felino have gotten the alternate captain letter for this season. What do you think about that?
I like Flino. That he's a guy that'll bring a lot of energy to the team, a lot of energy to the ice. He showed that last year, especially in the playoffs, by just decking White Cloud into the glass. Dumba, it feels weird because you could have gone with Brodeen. He's a guy who's been on the team longer than Dumba. He's a guy who's stayed loyal to the city, state, to the team, and a guy that just he does everything well on the ice. Where Dumba, he's been in trade rumors, he's gotten hurt, and I don't know. I would have rather had Dumba or a guy like Eric Sinek, a young up and coming center who brings a lot of energy and heart to this team as an alternate captain. But it is what it is.
I mean, yeah, you see, Dumba just surprised me. I mean, a lot of people were thinking Brodeen or Eriksson Ek. I know that was my two finalists for the other letter, and Felino is just a given. But yeah, Dumba is interesting for sure, and I guess we're just going to see how it works out this season. I mean, he definitely brings the energy during playoffs. It's just how does that translate onto his on ice play? I know Spurgeon was a little bit shaky. If like I can't lie, he was a little bit shaky at the start of the season, and that could have been from his new role. And yeah, I guess we'll just see what Dumba does. But next piece of news: Wild claim Rem Pitlick off of waivers, former Minnesota Golden Gopher. What do you think about that, Chase?
I don't mind it. It's a depth option for us. He knows the state. The fans know him well. He knows the city well. I think he's got a little bit of upside to him. Nothing too special. I think he's around. I think he's 24, might be 25, but it's a good piece, and we can always take the centers. Anything's better than Victor Rask, so Rem Pitlick will be a guy that I'm excited to see play. So I like it a lot, and doesn't have a cap hit, so it's a good addition. I like it.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a solid bottom six guy. I mean, I'll get into it later about what we think about the guy as a player, but I think it's a good claim. I mean, he's a young guy. He's a good goal scorer in the AHL, and yeah, I think he should fit in pretty well with the team. And going into fitting in with the team a little more, Duhaime wins the roster spot over Beckman, Rossi, and Boldy. And Dean Evanson said, "You can play him with anybody. He's going to give us opportunities. He's going to create opportunities because of that speed. He's got himself into a position where he looks like an NHL player."
I agree. I'm surprised that he got it over Beckman, especially considering how well he played. Especially with Beckman's OT winner, and showed how much heart. He had the fight, the Gordie Howe hat trick. He showed a lot of heart, and that's why it surprised me. And I don't mind it. Duhaime seems like a great player who can bring a lot of grit, a lot of energy to this team. But I think Beckman deserved it, honestly. I understand why Boldy didn't. He got hurt, and he had two rough periods in one of the preseason games. Rossi, I think, does belong in the AHL, but at the same time, I want to see him on the main roster. But battled through COVID, he needs time to rest and time to develop. So Beckman's the only one that shocked me.
Yeah, I agree with that. Rossi, he did look good, but he hasn't played in like a real like season setting since a couple years ago before he contracted COVID and had myocarditis. But also Boldy, he wasn't looking insanely confident during the preseason games, and on the other side, Beckman was looking extremely good, like just a solid player. Like people could argue that Beckman is better than Duhaime, and I honestly would agree with that. But Duhaime is a guy that, like Evison said, you can play him with anybody. He can play on any line. He's got that speed. I'd be lying if I said I didn't confuse him with Kaprizov a couple of times off the far side, just with that speed and that playmaking ability. But yeah, I guess just got to see how Duhaime does.
I agree, 100%.
So that Boldy injury, he broke his ankle in, I believe it was Thursday's preseason game, and should be out for 4 to 6 weeks. And Guerin kind of taking a stab at the Sabres there, letting Boldy, choose how he wants to recover, where Sabres kind of just forcing Eichel to do what they wanted.
Yeah, I saw that, and Boldy's injury did look nasty, and I do kind of I like how Guerin is taking that shot. He's one of the first ones to call out the Sabres, and he's showing this is how you manage a team. This is how you do things, and you can't force a player to do something if they don't want to do it, no matter what type of contract they have. Everyone's human, so I like that. I like that a lot. I think Guerin definitely knew what he was doing by it, and it's the right choice. Definitely, 100%.
So, final piece of news we have Cam Talbot was out of the preseason game, the final one, for a personal matter. Now, I'm not one to speak on it because we do not know the full extent of the personal matter. We don't know anything about it. But as far as I know, I don't think it's that like important because Cam Talbot was back practicing with the team the next day. But obviously, you gotta keep him in his thoughts, whatever he's going through, his family. Just gotta support him, and I guess we'll see what's going on if we ever find out.
Yeah, I think that's something, especially because he's with the team on that Duluth retreat. I don't know if it's something we will find out about unless Cam wants to come out about it. But whatever it is, I hope it got cleared up, and I wish all the best for him and his family.
All right, going into the game results, we're going to go through all of the preseason games, just take a look at the scores, take a look at the important players, and we'll take a look at the goalie lines as well. So first up, the Wild's 2-6 loss against the Blues, the first preseason game. Beckman was just fantastic in that game, and that's the first game when we saw, hey, this is a special player here.
Agreed. I didn't get to watch a lot of that. I did see the highlights after the game, and this kid's confidence is through the roof. It seems like he's already in his sixth pro year, like he's used to it. And I think that spoke for itself. And it's just all around. He looked phenomenal. No matter what the loss said, I mean, he was stuck out the most, 100%.
And Kakinen and Hammond kind of struggling in that game. I don't know if it's just because it's the Blues, but Kakinen posted a 750 save percentage. Hammond comes in at the tail end of that game and posts 857.
Yeah, I say we never play Capo against the Blues again. That's all I'm really going to say on that.
Next game, Wild lose 4-6 against the Avalanche. Zuccarello posting 3 assists. Talbot 917 save percentage, and Hammond with the 625 save percentage.
Wasn't horrible. We played a lot. Talbot played great. It's just preseason. That game, I'm not really too worried about it. It was just a battle. I mean, I think Gabriel Landeskog had I think that was the game he had that hissy fit on Hartman, and it's just, nothing really bothered me in that game. No one looked bad. No one looked amazing. So
next game, everyone looked amazing. Wild win 3-1 against the Avalanche. Kaprizov's first preseason game, 1 goal, 2 assists. Zuccarello continues his assists. He gets 2 there, and Kakinen is lights out, 938 save percentage.
That's what they needed. Again, I spoke on it being a preseason game and not mattering, but those are games that those bounce back games that boost your confidence and it shows how a team can rebound. And Kaprizov looked great. Zuccarello looked great. Kakinen had a great bounce back game from that first Blues loss. So that was a picture perfect game. That if the Wild could play like that 95% of the season, that is an easy Stanley Cup contending team.
Then the Wild won 4-3 against the Blues. This was the huge comeback. Wild got scored, I think, 3 goals on them in the first period, maybe even like in the span of 3 minutes. But then from the first period, at the end of that and on, the Wild were just dominant. I mean, Kulikov posts 2 assists. A guy that you don't think would ever hop in on the offense, he posts 2 assists, and Beckman again 1 goal and an assist, and Kokinen finishes with a 850.
Yeah. Um, Kulikov's more of a defensive type guy, but it's great to see him pitch in. Beckman again showing how much confidence he has, and how he can do really anything. Kakinen latter towards the end of the game was lights out. Um, but again, Beckman showed out that game and just showed how much confidence and heart he has.
Wild's final win of the preseason, 3-2 against the Blackhawks. Eriksson Ek posts a goal and an assist. Fiala and Zuccarello both get a pair of assists each, and Talbot was fantastic with a 931.
Yeah, I watched most of that game all around. Great game from legitimately everybody. Eriksson Ek played the way he should. Fiala, I like how he's passing the puck more, though I do like him being a shoot first guy. Him getting assists always helps. Zuccarello Zuccarello just looked great all around. Talbot looked great. Again, all starts he's made, he's looked great. So nothing to complain about in that game at all.
And the final preseason game, Wild dropped to the Blackhawks 5-1. And I'm gonna be honest, just nobody looked good in this game. Like Kaprizov, I gotta be honest, he was just sloppy. Like he didn't particularly get any chances, and Kokinen just kind of shows how the whole team was doing with that 8.65 save percentage there.
Yeah, I think it's one where the team no one wants to get hurt. They want to take it easy. And I think, honestly, just move past that game. Don't look at it. And just look towards the regular season. Look at all the positives you did in the regular season or the preseason. And then, look at some of the negatives you had, fix on it. But just forget about that game, in all honesty.
And going into the regular season, we'll have our first piece of discussion here. We're going to go over the projected lines for the Wild starting the season. First line, we got Kaprizov, Eriksson Ek, and Zuccarello. Second line, we got Greenway, Hardman, and Foligno. Third line, we got Pitlick, Goudreau, and Fiala. And finally, on that last line, we got Duhaime, Sturm, and Bukestad, with Rask as the 13th forward.
I like those. I like the first line, Kaprizov, Ek, and Zuccarello. Even though I would love to still see Ek with Greenway and Foligno, I'm actually really excited to see Hartman with them. All three of those guys are gritty power forwards who are not afraid to show the body at all. Kaprizov and Zuccarello with a guy like Eriksson Ek, a defensive-minded center who can score. I think that's going to be a fantastic line. I do feel bad for Fiala. I know him and Goudreau played together in Milwaukee, but it's like he showed last year that he needed line mates, and he's not particularly getting them. I wouldn't mind seeing Nico Sturm with him. I think that's a guy who he was very good on the fourth line, but I think that's a guy who you want to see on the third line, and maybe try to see if that guy can become a fringe top six guy for you. Duhaime, Sturm, Bukestad, I think that might be a good gritty line. We saw what he could do last year. Bukestad is honestly just a body on the ice, and it's going to be interesting to see how Duhaime does, especially with the preseason he had.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if Duhaime gets moved up to that third line with all that skill potential there. I know Duhaime can move the puck well, and he's fast, and I know Fiala has some wheels himself. And yeah, I think if things aren't going well, that should be a first edition that is made.
I agree. Um, yeah, Fiala's a guy who needs line mates, and hopefully with his connection with Goudreau, and maybe even if Duhami gets up there, I think that could be a very interesting line to see. But I still wouldn't mind seeing Fiala with Ek and Kaprizov, Fiala with Foligno and Hartman, just mix it around a bit. But that top six, I definitely like a lot.
And our defensive pairings: Spurgeon and Goligoski on the first pairing, Brodin and Dumba, and then Merrill or Ben with Kulikov.
I like it. I think Goligoski is an offensive defenseman. I think he's far past his prime. I do think he can provide a little bit. I think Spurgeon can make up for his defensive mistakes. And I do think he'll have a good bounce back season. You touched on it a little while ago, how you said that he struggled to get off to that um, start everyone was expecting him to. I think now that he's had a year with the captaincy, he'll be more calm. Brodin and Dumba, I think Brodin's definitely going to carry that defensive pairing. He's going to have to fight to make up for Dumba's mistakes because I expect Dumba to make a lot of them. I don't think Dumba's particularly the best defenseman ever. Um, he's just all around defensively. He showed last year. Yeah, he didn't turn the puck over, but he has not. He doesn't have the greatest defensive IQ. He really doesn't provide much offensively unless he gets a break. Um, I would rather see Merrill, especially with the preseason Ben had. That was atrocious. I think Merrill and Kulikov would be a very good defensive pairing. Both are defensive-minded defensemen. Merrill can throw the body. Merrill can fight. Kulikov isn't afraid to show the body. Um, I think Ben's a guy who you just keep there for injuries. Same thing with Rask. Is just they're just sitting there. That's all I can really say.
Yeah, and going back to Rask, something that kind of frightened me. Michael Russo was saying that Rask was actually practicing with Sturm and Bukestad the day after the preseason game, and I don't know what that's about. I hope it's nothing to come because I don't want to see Duhaime win that spot and just become the 13th forward again.
Yeah, I'll have a segment on Victor Rask. You guys can wait for that. So I'm not going to touch a lot onto it now, but I do see people say Rask isn't as bad as we say. He's getting paid a lot. That's why we say he's bad. He played with Kirill Kaprizov last season. That's all I'm going to say. He doesn't deserve a spot on this team.
And you mentioned Ben, and that'll take us straight into our player outlook starting the season. Jordy Ben, you said, yeah, he really did not have a good preseason at all. Um, I'm pretty sure it was over half the goals against us when Ben was playing. He was on the ice.
Yeah. He's just. I think the Wild signed him to be a depth defenseman, wanted to get a look at him, and I don't know if he's really ever been good. I've never really paid attention to him. But all he really was just he was a cone. He was just a traffic cone and a pylon out there, and he looked awful. And again, he wouldn't be a bad guy to slot in for an injury or if someone really needs a rest every now and then. But he definitely should not be starting game one.
Next up, we have Kirill Kaprizov. He was, of course, fantastic in his first preseason game with those 3 points. But again, like I was saying, that last game, I don't know what was going on. I don't know if they were scared to get injured after watching what happened to Boldy. I just don't know. But, there's no denying that Kaprizov is the face of the franchise.
Agreed. This is a guy who just came off winning the Calder Trophy, and he took the KHL route. He got pro experience under him. Came in and it showed. He came in and had a fantastic rookie season. Putting up, I believe it was 51 points in 55 games. I think this guy's got 40 to 50 goals in him, 90 to 100 points each year. This is a guy that'll easily turn this franchise around, and it brought attention to the Wild. People were finally realizing that not only is this kid legit, that the Wild are now exciting to watch. The Wild have been a boring team for years, and I'm not going to be afraid to admit that. Um, and he's a game changer. He's a guy that he is just so dynamic. He wasn't even in the defensive zone, he was pretty solid. But he's a guy, his skating's excellent. He's just memorizing to watch. He has great IQ. He's great with the puck. I mean, he can pass well, he can shoot well, he has handles, he has wheels, he has almost literally everything, and he threw the body a lot last year. So I think that's a guy that, is going to be a very, very valuable asset to this team for the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah, for sure. And you go on any social media under a Minnesota Wild highlight, and it's always Kaprizov, and you see people in the comments saying about how the Wild are actually fun to watch this year. And yeah, this is a guy that took the league by storm, won the Calder Trophy, and now he said it himself. He just wants to play hockey. And next up, we have Rem Pitlick, the waiver claim. We touched on him a little bit earlier, but yeah, I think when I watched him, he's a smart player. I mean, he's got all the tools to, make an impact, not a huge impact, but not completely be another Victor Ask. I think Pitlick is a good pickup, and I think he will be an important player on this team.
Agreed. He's got a lot of IQ to him, and he had that when he was with the Gophers. He knew how to play the game. His awareness is great. He's a guy. He's a big guy. And he's a guy that'll just be out there to essentially I see him as a Nico Sturm, a guy that you wouldn't expect to do much, but yet he will. He's a guy that'll fly under the radar, and I think that in the games we do get to see him play, he will be a very good player for this organization. Not, a Joel Eriksson or Kirill Kaprizov or Kevin Fiala, but an under the radar player that you wouldn't expect to do well, but does.
Yeah, and another guy just like that is Duhaime. He's got the speed. He's got the smarts. He had that fantastic goal in the Blues game to get us back on track there, which was eventually won by Beckman in the overtime. And yeah, I mean he's confident out there, and I think everyone knows it. That's why Evison and Guerin picked him to have that roster spot.
Agreed. From the times I did see, again, he has great IQ, great awareness, um, and just overall, he's a smart player. I didn't really see much weaknesses from him. So I would have rather had Adam Beckman there, but it wouldn't be bad to see Beckman back with Iowa again, just to get a few games under him. But I do think he will be on the roster for the NHL or for this upcoming 2021-2022 season. But we're gonna look forward to what Duhaime can bring to this team.
Yeah, for sure. Another free agent signing, a defenseman, Kulikov. I know I was pretty happy to see him sign with the Wild, and there were people saying that he hasn't gotten any more, but watching those preseason games, I think he still has it and more with this Wild team.
He does. This was a guy who he's a journeyman. He's been in Winnipeg, Florida, New Jersey. He's a guy that he's great defensively. He can chip in every now and then offensively, but he's definitely not going to be a liability on that ice. Again, we said it earlier, John Merrill, Jordy Ben, Dmitry Kulikov, that's who's going to be two of our third pairing defensemen. I'd definitely rather see Dmitry Kulikov 100% over Jordy Ben. He's smart, he's calm, he doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and he's just overall a great player.
Yeah, and Kulikov also a guy that has the smarts. He dropped the puck off to Beckman in that overtime winner. And yeah, he knows what he's doing out there. It's no secret. And next up, we have Jordan Greenway. At the start, he wasn't that good. I'm just being honest. But the last couple games, he really picked it up, and he was looking like that player that we knew from last year.
Greenway's interesting. He's a huge body. Does he have the IQ? I'm not 100% sure on that. He's not terribly slow, but he's not a fast skater. He's he needs to develop more. He's still a guy that's a little bit far out, but I think he needs to be utilized in a way that no player on this team gets utilized. He's 6'6". He can hit, he can fight, but he's also showed that he can score and chip in offensively. So if the Wild can just make if he can make some improvements on his game, tweak himself a little bit, and just find that edge, and the Wild can learn how to actually utilize him, I think this would be a fantastic winger for this team.
Yeah. And 13th forward, it's looking like for the season, Victor Rask. I know everyone has their opinions about him, but yeah, I see him as a 13th forward. That's about it. I don't think he really chips in anything extra that the Wild need to put him on a line or anything. I think he's just a depth guy in case someone gets hurt. And even then, I'd rather see Beckman or Rossi or Boldy or someone.
Rask is a guy that, we traded Nino Niederreiter straight up from. Is Niederreiter the greatest player in the world? No, but he can score goals and he's not a liability on the ice compared to where Rask, he makes mistakes, he doesn't correct himself, and if the times he did look good, it's because he had Kirill Kaprizov on his wing. Kaprizov can make anyone look good, and Rask is just more of a liability when he's not playing with any stars. He makes a lot of mistakes. He doesn't correct himself. He turns the puck over a lot. He went 0 for 13 in Game 7 on faceoffs. That is a level where you gotta just say, all right, you're done. You cannot do this anymore. To go 0 for 13 on a game like that, Game 7 against Vegas, that was horrible to watch. As a center myself, when I play hockey, that it killed me to watch, because your main goal should be to win every single face-off, and he lost every single face-off. It was horrible to watch. He didn't do anything right that game. Hardly did anything right the entire season. I'll go more in depth on Victor Rask later, but yeah, it's no that.
Maybe backup spot to start, and Kakinen takes the reins, and I guess we'll see from there how it goes.
So yeah, with Kakinen, I see it's going to be interesting because besides the one St. Louis game he had, he was very good. He was in the Calder talks. He looked great, but I think that kind of rattled him. He did bounce back pretty good. So it's going to be interesting to see, especially with us drafting Jesper Wallstedt, what's going to happen in his future. But Kakinen nonetheless does have a bright one. So a Wallstedt Kakinen combination in the future would be great. But I think Kakinen needs to find just how to stay consistent and how to rattle off games like he did, like he's had against St. Louis. So those are some things that I think he'll have to work on.
Yeah, I think the Wild have definitely found a good problem to have in having too many good goalie prospects. And yeah, I guess we're just gonna have to see how those guys develop. Goalies are kind of wild cards, and just gotta, they gotta figure out their game, and we'll see who's the next goalie. All right, wrapping up here, we got 5 questions from my Instagram followers. First question by Abby Bai. Beckman, Rossi, Boldy, who gets called up first?
I think it's Adam Beckman, especially with the preseason he had. Adam Beckman was fantastic, but it would not surprise me at all to see Marco Rossi come up on the team. I think Boldy plays a year out in the AHL, but I think Rossi's a guy where if an injury gets or a center gets hurt, you have Bukestad who's playing on the wing, Rask is the 13th center who can come and take a spot. But it wouldn't surprise me to see Rossi come up at all. But I do think Beckman will be the first one up on the roster, considering the preseason he had.
Yeah, for sure. And a question that Guerin and Evison have to consider is how many games do you let them play in the NHL? I know their ELCs wear off if they play, I think it's more than 10 games in the NHL. So is Beckman going to only play 10 games, and is Rossi going to come up after that? I don't know. I think it would be okay for Beckman to lose a year of his ELC if it means that the Wild are going to be better. Yeah, and I know Guerin, for sure, I think he wants to start him off in that top 6 spot. He doesn't want him buried and getting no ice time. And that leads to our next question by Cool Kaprizov on Instagram. Will all three, Rossi, Boldy, Beckman, be on the team next year?
Yes, I do think all three of them in some way will. I think Beckman and Rossi will have top 6 minutes. I think Boldy's a guy who will be probably a third liner, maybe get also top 6 minutes. Who knows? But I definitely do expect them three to be on the roster next year. I think Boldy's or Beckman's a lock to be on the team.
Yeah, Beckman for sure. I'd also say Rossi definitely, but Boldy, he's just got to get more confident. I know he was over a point per game in the AHL. It's no question that he can produce. It's just he's got to get that confidence up so he can produce at the NHL level. Our next question comes from jbusta25. Should we trade some prospects and go all in this year or wait for the future?
No, hell no. I think these are you cannot trade the prospects, especially with how cap strapped we're going to be. And I don't think people realize how bad of how badly cap strapped we're going to be in 2 to 3 years. We're going to be 15-16 million dollars in dead cap hit. So we got to hold on to as much cap space as we can get. We got to develop guys like Murat Kustadanov, Pavel Novak, Damian Hunt, um, Caden Banneker. We got to hold on to those guys and we got to develop them right because even Bill Guerin said we cannot make any moves in free agency. We're going to have our hands tied like no other. So this is going to be an interesting thing to see play out, but no, we cannot trade our prospects.
Yeah, I agree, and that's the reason why Rossi, Boldy, and Beckman are in the AHL is so they can keep that extra year of ELC to carry through the $15 million in dead cap space, and that's also why Kaprizov has to be signed for longer than 3 years, just so he can get past that. And he's signed for 5 years. At the end of that, see how he's doing. If he's even better, give him $10 million, $11 million. He deserves it. It's just we can't afford it right now. And yeah, I mean, I know Goligoski has a handshake agreement with Guerin to sign with the Wild for what is it, like $2 million after this year's up, just because of the cap. And yeah, I mean, if we get guys that want to win, and they're going to have to take a pay cut for the next couple of years. That kind of goes into our next question from Dyson Miller 52. Other than center, what is the Wild's biggest weakness?
I do think probably our defense. It went downhill this year. On paper, it doesn't look good, but I think overall it's still solid. But I think that's going to be our weakness in our power play. I mean, our power play was god awful last year. Our power play too in training camp in practice. Um, well, my God, did that look bad? But I think they got to. I think Dean Eveson's got to figure out those two things and just hopefully, get some type of thing going with them both.
Yeah, that first power play unit was looking fantastic in the preseason, and the same can be said with the end of last season. It was looking fantastic, and the Wild do need to solidify that because with Kaprizov, a guy that is setting huge numbers for drawn penalties. I think he was in the top 10 last year. Getting those power plays and converting those opportunities is going to be huge. And final question here, wrapping it up from Tangy5369. Why give Dumba the A? He's overrated in my opinion. I think we should trade him. I'll actually start this one. Yeah, I agree. Eriksson Ek and Brodin are better options in my opinion, but we said it earlier. Dumba definitely brings the energy in the playoffs for sure, and just got to see what he does with this role and if he can step his play alongside it. I also agree that he might be a little overrated. I personally agree that he can be a fantastic defenseman. He just has to clean up his mistakes, and him getting the A, it points to a new contract and that we're going to keep him for a long time.
I think he's more of a heart and soul guy. He got along with Kirill Kaprizov well, and he's a guy who you can, count on to bring the energy to games. So I do think he's overrated, and I do think we should trade him. But, I would rather see Brody and Eriksson Ek, but it is what it is. We can't do anything about it now.
And that about wraps up the first episode of Wild Roundup. You can expect to see these probably weekly as long as we have something to talk about. tune in next week. We're gonna be going over first couple of Minnesota Wild games this season, as well as all the news. So have a great week, and we'll see you.